happened that it's from you that I found out that there was the first demonstration at City Hall about the masking. People were upset and gathered in significant numbers at City Hall late in the summer, wanting to question this masking mandate. And that caused us to form a group. And in those rallies, you have been the master of ceremonies. You have been the point person. You have been introducing it, moving along, moving the scenario along, moving the speakers along, and done a terrific job and are really serving the community in this difficult time when we must face these difficult issues. And you know, it's a bit of pressure to be in that public spotlight in the way that we're sometimes reviled in the media or you know, not exactly put in a flattering light, but nevertheless, it's so important what's going on now that we just have to address the severity of where this is all pointed and headed. You, I know, are a self-published author with 2 books, Safe Behind the Little Waterfall and The Meaning We Make of Our Lives. And I've been reading these works, and I'm thinking that in a discussion, I might draw on things that I've read in here as helping me to understand how it is that you took the gumption I think that's been one of the catalysts to make me fearless. And then just when the so-called pandemic started, I self-published this one, The Meaning We Make of Our Lives, Who Will Cry When We Die, in the beginning, well, about the middle of March. And both of them are self-published. This one is strictly self-help inspirational. And so it explains in detail how I've done my work and my healing work, and how I've evolved to where I'm at. And then I've had the opportunity to serve. I was guided to the first rally at City Hall with Lee Maines in charge, and then after that there was some other people that were directing it, and then I came on board probably, I don't know, maybe July, and then we've had lots of help. Just recently, with the help of Mike Hoffman, he created a Facebook page, which I know nothing about. I'm resistant to all of that, but he created a beautiful Facebook page called We the People, YQL, and you can go to that if you want to know, if you're a freedom seeker, or if you want to know the truth about really what's going on in the universe right now. So I think we just did our last rally 2 weeks ago. It was on a Tuesday afternoon, and we had Arthur Pulowski down and some of his family. He spoke. Paul Hinman, who is I think a politician, but very much awake and a truth seeker, and we were grateful to have him come and speak. And then I've been facilitating these rallies, and they've been going very, very well. Again, if you want to go to We the People, YQL, you can find out more about these rallies. And for me, it's just been an absolute pleasure to be doing this. Like, I think that one of the reasons we're here on this planet is to serve and to evolve out of fear, to love and trust and forgiveness. And that's what I've been doing with my healing work.
I recall the first time I saw you speak publicly, it was at City Hall, and Lee Mine was more or less leading the demonstration. We went into the, hi, somebody is standing there. Hello, you want to?
Sorry to interrupt. Did you?
Yeah, we're on air. Yeah, everything's fine. Yeah, thank you.
I was just here to check on it.
Yeah, okay, Dave, yes.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, little improvisation there.
Yeah.
In any case, Lee Mine, who is well known for his leadership in the martial arts area, small business area, he led the proceedings and led us into the City Hall Council chambers, and that was quite dramatic, and we made a point that you didn't listen to us when you were discussing the masking mandate, and we resented being left out of the discussion, that somehow the city representatives failed to take notice of the people, of what we would have brought forward if we could. So there we were, locked outside in a sense, bringing our concerns after the fact rather than before the decision was made. Anyway, after the main proceedings, there you were on the steps, and you'd written some text, you'd written a speech, and darn it, you gave that speech with a lot of integrity and passion and determination. I could see the determination that there's much that has to be said here, and we have to find a way to bring these ideas out. And it seems that since then you've been writing more and more on the subject, and as you learn more, you seem to gain new insights as you meet new people. I know you were very impressed with Arthur Pawlowski and his presentation here.
Absolutely.
So if you could continue to talk about this pandemic that is arisen in the name of what the World Health Organization called COVID-19. It's the World Health Organization that named it a pandemic. Although it's interesting that the death rates in most countries, Canada included, are no different in 2020 than any other year. We had about 186,000 deaths in 2020, and so in this time of the so-called pandemic, the number of people dying is not increasing. There seems to be sort of no record of who's dying of flu, who's dying of heart attacks, who's dying of diabetes. It seems that all the effort is to count everything as a COVID death. In any case, this pandemic seems to be, there's so many fishy aspects to it. You use the word freedom very prolifically and with great force. Can you continue to explain how you see what's going on? And
Yeah, absolutely. I believe strongly that this is a pandemic of fear and control. I believe that it basically is the virus is just a flu bug. I just recently read on Art Pawlowski's Facebook page that there's a doctor in Calgary who has been a whistleblower to validate that it's just been a flu bug. And I think, unfortunately and sadly, our governments have just they've used it to manipulate us, basically. And what I mean by that is, to be totally honest and out there, they've brainwashed us to believe that there really is a deadly virus, and anybody that knows that, anybody that watches TV or mainstream media That's a way of brainwashing us and dumbing us down, and that's been happening for decades. Also,
But not on this scale, and not with this severity, and not with this much power. The power of the media, the power of banking, the power of Wall Street and the big corporations. We've seen the same interest that we're saying, no, you can't notice election fraud in the United States. Naughty, naughty, naughty. That's a baseless charge. That's the same people are telling us, no, there's only one way to view this COVID-19. You must view it as a great menace to the future of humanity, as the worst health crisis we've faced in the 20th century. The power of the forces combined trying to promote this single story. Anyway, that's an aside. You're taking the
well, and that's why it's so important to turn off your TV and not listen to the negative narrative from the news and the mainstream media, because 95% of that is false news. And it's we've been programmed with our movies, with violence, with killing and war, to believe that that's okay when it's not. So one of the solutions here, I believe strongly, is to stop the brainwashing and the manipulation of our mind. Is the first step is to turn off your TVs. And I can't say that loud enough. And for me, I had my head in the sand. I think, I haven't watched TV for probably 15 years, but I wasn't aware of what's really going on, the truth of how our governments don't care about us. They don't care about our grandchildren. They don't have our backs. They aren't there to protect us in any way.
And the fact that all the governments in the world are playing off of the same script and are completely ignoring their own people.
Absolutely.
They're the Kennys, the Trudeaus. I mean, there's a higher authority here at play. Could it just be coincidence that all the governments in the world are following the same script and are, equally contemptuous towards their own people? Well, incidentally, in terms of that, a recent court case has come through in Germany of a judicial finding saying there is no justification for the lockdowns. And so they've found that the lockdowns are sort of a criminal activity. And the lockdowns are so unprecedented. This is something new in history. We've never put healthy people in quarantine. And, we target people who are sick. But here you have this whole issue around so-called asymptomatic transmission. Well, what does that mean, you're asymptomatic? I mean, we have many viruses in us. We don't display them all the time, so we're asymptomatic for the bacteria and viruses in us most of the time, all of the time. Anyway, so the question of whether anything is there, I mean, some good arguments are advanced that the virus has never been isolated. I mean, could you do an autopsy on a person and discover if that person died only of COVID-19 and no other so-called comorbidities? So when we say it's a flu, well, there is this question of the biological research being done in these bioweapons labs, and it does seem to me that there is all of that issue to consider. So is it a concoction, or is there an element of truth in it, or is the whole thing a fraud from A to Z?
Well, that's the thing that's frustrating. I mean, we've had proven facts that the masks don't work, the lockdowns don't work. Anybody out there that is willing to do some research and wanting to find out the truth, I would advise that strongly, because I mean, if you look at the action of what's been happening since March, 1 minute the masks worked or didn't work, the next minute they did work. Before you know it, they were mandated to wear. It's just destabilizing the world and confusing everybody. And the same with the lockdowns. I mean, why is Walmart and Costco open and the personal, the local businesses are being destroyed? And why can't you go to a restaurant or a coffee shop and connect with your loved ones, but yet you can be elbow to elbow in Walmart?
Yeah, I know.
mean, it's ridiculous, and it destabilizes people, and it makes them more confused, and that's why I'm advising people to do your own research, to find out the facts.
Now, we tried to emphasize in the last rally, several of the speakers, that it's very inconsistent that Walmart and Costco are fully open and doing increased business, a growth in business. Now, where is the growth coming from? From our own indigenous local businesses that are shut down.
Absolutely.
And so we have policies that prejudice against local Albertan, Canadian businesses for American big box stores, or in the case of Walmart, it's largely an operation based in China, because that's where most of the stuff in Walmart comes from. It's been a kind of operation that emerged from the deindustrialization of North America to build up business in China, and Walmart is part of that. Donna, you mentioned masking, and masking, of course, is how we started in this subject, and it's a tremendously evocative, symbolic issue. And in your book, The Meaning We Make of Our Lives, in chapter 14, on the subject of entitlement, you had some passages which I'm sure you didn't write with the masking in the present situation in mind, but it was very revealing what you said here, and I'll just read it out to the audience and to you, what you said about masking in this text. Entitlement is a mask that a person wears so others will not know him. The mask keeps him from knowing himself too. He is unaware that he is wearing a mask or what the mask hides. The facade helps him avoid all of his feelings. He has lost his authentic self. The mask helps him hide and avoid his fears. The mask controls his perceptions, opinions, thoughts, and actions. I mean, the power of wearing these masks and then differentiating yourself from those who don't wear the mask, and thinking of yourself in a certain way. It seems to me this is evoked by your text here. The mask controls perceptions, opinions, and thoughts and actions. The mask is a way of avoiding his deep unworthiness. He does not feel worthy of his life, and he has no value. So those who sort of submit to the regime of the mask, which is, and it's increasingly coming out, this is deleterious to people's health. It's certainly deleterious to children whose minds, who require oxygen. The masks contain bacteria. They hold on to bacteria, and people are, there's new forms of pneumonia spreading around based on the bacteria in the masks. I don't know if you have any thoughts about what you've written here on masks.
Yeah, I did write that before the, pandemic, and it's kind of a catalyst to what's going on here. Yeah, the masks, they lower your immune system. I've talked to people, sadly, that are employees that have to wear them for 8 hours, where they develop headaches and nausea, and I heard even pleurisy can be caused, and not to mention what you just read in the paragraphs there. It also creates a lowering of self-worth through feeling shame I don't wear a mask. I refuse to wear a mask. I haven't since this journey started with the pandemic. And I've noticed when I go into a grocery store, people that are wearing masks, people that I interact with at Starbucks, they have a hard time even looking me in the eyes because they're feeling shame. And I've also heard that if you continue to wear these masks, it will kill you because you need natural air.
Of course, oxygen is, essential to life. Water, air, and you need to breathe every few seconds. You can't survive very long without oxygen. So the severity of this issue, the amount of literature that this is generating, the studies are there's you just can't say that only ignorant people don't wear the mask because they haven't done their research, their homework. Actually, it's quite the opposite. And but it does, in a sense, brand people. It's an indicator of who is going along with the plot. And when I say the plot, I suppose there are many people who view this response to COVID-19, this response to the pandemic, that basically the government has our backs. The government is watching out for us. They're trying to do the best they can under difficult circumstances. But there's a whole other analysis which is becoming very elaborate, and it's the higher level interpretation which says, no, this is not to help us. It's quite the opposite. Once you start wearing a mask, you convey you're pretty well with the program, and it's a symbol for being muzzled. You wear a mask. When you hear people trying to talk with a mask, it's difficult to understand them. Some of the people that are most outspoken against masks, they're occupational safety specialists, people who work with doctors and other professionals who use masks in their professional life. And there's a lot to it. Just the way we're doing it now is not cleanly. It's not it's not respectful of the needs of human health. When you think of Costco, the people working in Costco, the people working in these big box stores, to wear the mask every day, this is a kind of punishment of employees, and should in the long run, it's a kind of abuse of your workers. But this is this is where we're at. Like the appearance is given that this is somehow seditious to call into question the interpretation given us from the great TV, from the CBC, that wearing masks is good. Dr. Fauci told us back in the early stages of this, don't wear a mask. That's not necessary. Yes. So people flip, people change, so where is this headed? What else is involved in this?
Well, sadly, what you're saying is true. But if I wanted to look at the solution from a healing and spiritual form, I would say one of the most important things is to heal yourself and start changing your mind from fear and doubt, which we've all been programmed, like I said, with our TVs, our education systems, our religions, with all this false narrative. So I believe the solution is to start reprogramming your mind and retraining your mind out of fear. Because the powers that be...
Away from fear.
And out of fear. To be able to release it away from fear, however you want to say it. Because the powers that be, the ones that are controlling us right now, that's what they feed off. They feed off our fear. So it's, my husband and I are also doing another program of dissolving our ego and retraining our mind, We do a lesson a day, and that course is called, I know some of the people out there might have heard of it, is called Course in Miracles. And there's a lesson every day, and we've been doing that, and that has been really helping retraining our mind, because we've been programmed to be fearful, to be judgmental, to be attacking. And I have learned so much from this Course in Miracles and what I have been doing every day, because it has enabled me and manifested me to be even more fearless. So, for example, when I judge you, I've judged myself. When I attack you, I have just attacked myself. And I have learned and been programmed to attack, to punish, to condemn. And so, these people that are walking around frightened, they don't even, they're not even at a place where they can own their fear. But once you do that, even if the beginning of your healing journey was to say, I am afraid, I am fearful, because what you look at disappears. And then once you own those feelings, then you can release them and clear them and do whatever it takes to do that. But that's the other thing that we've been programmed out of. We've been programmed out of our feelings. We have learned how to manage our feelings where they're repressed. And that just makes it worse. So we were programmed that, from kindergarten, sit down, shut up, and do what you're told and do not speak your truth. And so that takes a lifetime to redo. And unfortunately, that's why we're here right now, in this reality of fear. And it's very sad, because the energy is just of fear. And so the powers that be, when you think about it, an absolute global shutdown where everything is happening the same in every country, only maybe in different forms. And so that, to me, is the solution to get our power back, and our freedom is by speaking our truth transparently, our thoughts, our opinions, our ideas, and expressing our feelings.
Now, on the question of fear, well, there is good cause for fear as far as I can see. Some would say, well, I fear the virus. I fear that there is a virus loose that has got such harsh consequences for the future of humanity, for the health of humanity. But those of us who say, wait a second, the way that they're dealing with this supposed pandemic, there's just too much that doesn't add up. I mean, for instance, how much longer do we have to emphasize that when they say the cases are rising, there's no test that reliably says what it means to be tested positive. What does it mean? What does it carry? So the PCR test does a great excess of positive findings. And then immediately authorities will transfer the positives into cases and say there's a rising number of cases. But the foundation, it's built on a quagmire. There is no good foundational way to demonstrate, who is infected or not infected, what it means to be infected. Some people, they say, well, you can be infected and never even know it. Well, maybe that's called immunity. Well, why can't we get immunity for this in a natural way? Why do we have to go this vaccine way? So when you talk about fear, what's in this vaccine? This vaccine is an experiment. The consequences of doing an experiment on live human beings, it's unthinkable that this is going forward on this scale. And many people are dying. There are many injuries, vaccine injuries, and we really don't know the implications of a mRNA vaccine that does genetic modification. And then when you look at who's pushing this agenda, and the fact that they want to have, immunity passports and systems of record keeping attached to it, they don't mean you're going to take one vaccine this year or two vaccines and that's the end of it. They're promoting a lifetime, a cradle to grave agenda of constant vaccines, which is simply to say we're going to take over your immune system. We have natural immune systems which have served most of us, well to be alive at this stage. We've lived over, thousands of years and tens of thousands of years. This is our survival mechanism. So what would it mean for humanity to give over our immune function to Big Pharma and to be totally subject to these vaccines? Are they even vaccines? What economy? Now we have the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, saying, now we're changing the economics because the lockdowns are so huge in their consequences. Our economy is changing. We're losing all kinds of small businesses. So we've got to print new money and go into bigger debt. But don't mind, because this is going to be something called a Great Reset. And we're going to redo our energy and banking and education. And he's talking about, we should get excited about changing the whole nature of our society. So the theme is fears. What does the world of work look like in the future? Well, the world of work is largely robots, and robots in the digital world, in the artificial intelligence world. And how do you get human beings to conform to living in a robotic world where much of the work is done by computers and by machinery? So there's so many reasons to be afraid. Like, is this eliminating the independence of the middle class, the independence of people who've built up businesses and own businesses and are watching their businesses collapse as Walmart and Costco and the big box stores, boom ahead, and with that the billionaires boom ahead, and the middle class is emptied out. That is cause to me for fear.
Oh, yeah.
What are the chances? What's the world being prepared for our children and grandchildren? What's it going to look like? So the fears are, I think, justified and abundant. But the fear isn't so much that coronavirus has got out of control and is just going to go around and randomly kill everyone. But the manipulation of that fear, the manipulation of that trepidation, you can do major things in reforming and changing society with that.
Well, absolutely, and that's why it's so important, crucially important at this time, to wake up. And we need to wake up and find out and to understand, and I'm not dismissing our not validating people's fear, or not feeling empathy and compassion for their fear. I understand fear. But the bottom line is, if we